Hello, legends. Hello. I'm in a relationship. I'm in a relationship with a woman, but that's only because I'm gay. I'm in a relationship, and the reason I'm telling you is that it's really good for me that I'm in a relationship, because I thought I was going to be alone forever. Because I'm really bad at dating. Like, really terrible at dating. Like, I don't deserve the relationship I'm in. Like, I'm absolutely horrific at dating. Like, before I got into the relationship that I'm currently in, I was on the worst date ever, right? And I'll give you some context, right? I can go and do stand-up 5 or 6 nights a week, no problem, and come up with a bunch of things to say to a room full of strangers. But the second I'm on a date, I'm like, my neighbourhood's getting a new supermarket. It's going to be a really big one. It's going to open up a lot of job opportunities for the local community while watching the candle to their soldiers blow out through their eyeballs, right? And the whole time I'm like, no, don't do this, Kirsty. This is so boring. Like, you can't. But I've got nothing else, right? So I've got to back myself. So I was on this particularly terrible date just before I got into my current relationship. And it was all me. They were great, right? The date would have been perfect if I hadn't been there. And I'm in the middle of a boring story, right? I'm like, yeah, it's going to be twice the size of the neighbouring supermarket. And there's suddenly a really high-pitched whistle, like really high-pitched. And I was like, wait, I'm pretty sure that came out of me. Right, I was like, I don't know which bit, but I'm quite certain it's come out of my body somewhere, right? And I have a quick look around to see if anyone else is acknowledging it. And they're not, so I'm like, okay, I better keep going because she's on the edge of her seat. She wants to know what's up with this supermarket. So I'm like, it's going to have 2 whole aisles dedicated to laundry detergent. So bad, so boring. And it happened again, super high-pitched, right? And there were like woodland animals gathered at my feet and like puppies pawing at the window of the restaurant. Like, I turned into a Disney princess. And it had come from me. It had come from my mouth, which I think is quite a good result when you consider all the possibilities, right? I was quite pleased it was just a facial issue. And so a couple of days later, I went to the dentist because I was like, this is a disaster. Like, what's going on with my face? And so I went to the dentist and I found out that what has happened is my front teeth have moved together in the perfect angle to create a sporadic whistle. Right, like just 3 or 4 times a day, just willy-nilly, there's no method to the madness. The only way to fix it is with braces, which I was quite pleased about because I'd just been thinking to myself, what can I do as a 35-year-old single person to make myself sexier? And the dentist was like, I've got an idea for you, we'll get this bucket of metal and we'll chuck it in your face for 18 months, you're going to be fine. The annoying thing is that I've already got a lisp and now I've got a whistle as well. I'm just a stutter short of being a Calvin Harris remix. Like, just all here, just all on my own. Cool thing about having a lisp, though, is that when I was in my 20s, I went to Taiwan and I taught English for 6 years. And in that time, I taught hundreds and hundreds of students, and every single one of them has a lisp. It was unavoidable. I've moved house recently. I've moved in with my partner. I had to lock that down before I got a face full of metal. So we moved in together. And I always thought that I hated moving house more than anyone else in the world, but I'll tell you who actually does. It's removalists. Like, from the second you call up the company and you're like, I'm moving house soon, I was wondering if you could help out. They're like, when? Like, you're never going to meet a removalist who's like, it's a vocation. I didn't choose to be a removalist, it chose me. The signs were all there when I was about 5 years old. Mum came into the lounge and saw me stacking and unstacking boxes. And she knew. And another time Dad came home from work and saw me nudging the fridge across the kitchen with my shoulder. And he knew. Yeah, he knew. And another time Granddad came out of the study and saw me scraping the paint off the hallway walls with a microwave. He knew. You're never going to hear it. But I've moved house and I've done all the things you're meant to do when you move house. Like I found the good cafe with the good coffee, found the good parks to cruise around in. And I've moved in around the corner from a gym, and I've joined that gym because I'm trying to get back my pre-baby body and I was a particularly small fetus. It's a journey. It's a journey, but I'm committed. Now, the first day that I rocked up to the gym, they said to me, would you like a personal trainer? And I said no, because I'm smart. Right, now, I don't know if you know this, but you don't need to get a personal trainer because someone else will and you can copy them. All right, and you just hope you've got the same goals for your body. And if you don't, in a few weeks' time, you'll have a strange surprise and you can move on to the next person, okay? What happened to my quads? Move on, just move on, okay? So I've gone into the gym and I've just chosen a random punter, right? Just a random that's got their little registration paper. And I'm like, all right, it looks like they've got a program over there. And so I pulled out a bench, right? Pardon the gym jargon. Stick with me. Pulled out a bench and then I pulled out 2 dumbbells, right? Like, sorry, that's more jargon there. This is how I talk now. It's part of the registration. It's like once you're in the gym's in you, you know. So I've pulled out these things and I've gone to do my first rep of my first set, which coincidentally was going to be my last rep of my last set. Right? I'm just all high-intensity interval training over here. So I've gone to do this, and as I've gone to do it, I've noticed that I've positioned the bench immediately beneath one of those auto air fresheners. Right? And I'm like, that's a ticking time bomb. Like, that's a gym OH&S issue there, right? And then I'm like, what are the odds that that's going to go off while I'm doing my one rep of my one set? Right, so in I go to make it count, right? Big rep, in I go like this. And sure enough, as I get to the point here, psst, off it goes. And I'm panic-stricken, right? Like, my mind's racing and my heart's pounding and I'm like, what am I going to do? I've got to make a decision. I've never been in this position before. I'm about to have a very fragrant face. Right, like, that's the worst result imaginable, is that you leave the gym smelling good, right? And so I'm lying there and I'm panicking, and then this strange calm just washed over me, right? Like, I could hear Enya in the distance. I imagine it's what it's like at the end, like the end, not the end of your sesh. And so I was just lying there and, like, my brain switched off and, like, animal instinct kicked in. And so what I did was, like, I flopped off the bench, right? And I was hurt. They're actually quite high. Like, I was hurt. The dumbbells landed on me willy-nilly, and I put the bench really close to a large concrete pillar because I hadn't anticipated flopping off the bench. Right, so I was wedged in between the pillar and the bench with these dumbbells on me, and it sounds quite bleak, but actually in this moment I found out that I make very convincing porpoise sounds. So I was lying there and I was going... like, so convincing that I was like, oh my gosh, I hope someone see me wedged in this very vulnerable position because there's a porpoise in the gym and we don't know what it's capable of. Right, and then this gentleman, he came over and he leant over the bench and he said, are you all right down there? And I went to reply that I needed help, but just this high-pitched whistle came out, and then there were woodland animals gathered. It was a nightmare. You've been amazing. I've been Kirsty Webeck. Thank you very much.